Hello, everyone. It is showtime. Welcome to Latina Professionals, and welcome to this presentation on magnetizing attention, how to captivate and engage your audience. Thank you if you are one of the people who've been coming every week to these public speaking and confidence sessions. If this is your first time attending, definitely let us know in the comments. But as you join here, this is a community. We want to build this community outside of this time here on Mondays. So if you haven't yet, definitely feel free to connect to our community, drop any questions, and say hello. So let's start off with where you're joining from, what industry you're in, and what you're looking to learn today. If you've seen some folks here at different sessions multiple times, and you're like, you know what, it's time that we connect here on LinkedIn, or we connect in some other way, share emails, definitely do so. If you haven't yet connected with me as today's speaker, definitely do so as well. And I hope that this presentation really provides you the support that you're looking for on building out more of your audience engagement, building in attention from the start of your presentation to the end of your presentation, including using things like visual aids, often known as slide decks or presentations, maybe even a pitch if you're an entrepreneur or hosting a startup. And you want to make sure that you're leaving that lasting impact. And how do you leave a lasting impact? By making sure you're doing the right steps to keeping folks' attention throughout the presentation. So again, welcome to Latina Professionals. And if you haven't yet already, let us know where you're joining from, the industry you're in, and what you're looking to learn today. Because there's a reason that you were drawn to this topic on magnetizing that attention and really engaging with your audience. So let's see who's here today so far. All right, we have Imran from Pakistan. Welcome to the session here as well. Alejandra, so glad that you're excited for this topic as well. This was definitely one that I was pretty excited about because these are some of the tactics, strategies, and techniques that I use when I'm hosting these presentations through Latina Professionals. And there are times when we look at a speaker and we say, you know, there's something to it. I can't put my finger quite on it, but they're a great speaker or they really engaged me, and I'm not sure how they did. I just know that they did. Well, I hope that this presentation can really unlock some of those strategies so that you can take at least one thing from this topic, one single thing perhaps, and to use in the next time you're speaking in public, whether that is a stand-up meeting, whether that is a presentation, or whether that is speaking up in a meeting and asking a question. So we're seeing folks coming in from Memphis, Tennessee, Providence, Rhode Island in social impact and startups. Hello, Serena. Tucson, Arizona in finance and retirement, Columbus, Ohio, supply chain engineering. Ooh, and Alejandra here is career and leadership coach as well. Welcome. Karina from Chicago. Again, if you're feeling a little bit shy, I hope that you're taking some of the lead or examples from folks who are here to introduce yourself, because you never know who you meet in these sessions. And they're not just for learning new things, they're for learning and meeting new people as well. So as y'all are introducing yourselves, I'm going to ask another question. And before that too, I want to make sure I'm introducing myself. So coming here, my name is Sammy. It looks like some of y'all are already familiar with me. And I am a public speaking and confidence coach. And I work with executive level leaders to build their long-term confidence through committed speaking practice, expert feedback, and accountability. Just like this session, I want you to feel that you're not alone when you're going on this journey to building your confidence. And confidence can be built in many different ways. I actually hosted my first presentation solely on confidence. And I'm not going to lie, I sprinkled a little bit of information about public speaking there as well. But confidence itself is a very interesting topic of how do we build it? How do we trust ourselves? How do we build trust with other folks? And how do we slowly but surely really lower the volume of any comparison we have to others and really just move forward in a strong way? And I know public speaking is a way that many people view another person as confident. Well, I view Sammy as confident because she's a really strong public speaker. I view Jessica as someone who's a leader because she speaks very articulately, clearly, and is very cognizant about the audience that she's speaking to. So definitely examples of folks in your life who are strong public speakers usually kind of correlates with that idea of confidence as well. Excellent. Seeing so many more folks introducing themselves. If you haven't already connected with me or other folks here in the chat, definitely do so. Now, tell me here in this chat as well, what's drawn your attention? Let's say in the last presentation you attended, what's something that the speaker did that was memorable to you or that kept your attention in that presentation? Alejandra here. The comparison game is so detrimental to mental health and confidence. Completely. And as you see everyone here, they're really not your competition in the sense of they're a lot more your community, the folks who are truly rooting for you and looking for you to do your best. Thank you, Alejandra. Okay. So what's drawn your attention so far from different presentations you've seen? As we're checking out examples from the community, I know one thing that has drawn my attention are jokes at times. And they're usually not jokes at anyone's expense. They're just kind of a sense of lightening the mood and recognizing, yes, this can be a professional environment and we can joke about something. So, for example, I remember someone at a conference for student affairs who joked about how much rain there was the day before, that they got completely soaked and they're really glad to see that they were in front of a dry crowd. And that was something that really stuck out to folks because they recognized, okay, the speaker came in from a completely different place, but they brought in some of their experience as well. Let's see. So things that draw your attention, giving opportunities to reflect and takeaways as well. That is always a great strategy, especially when there's some tangible takeaways too. Let's see, from Valentina, that they know what they're talking about. And oftentimes we introduce ourselves to highlight what we're talking about. So for example, I introduce myself as a public speaking and confidence expert. So hopefully that builds confidence in you watching to sense, okay, at least Sammy knows what she's talking about. Personal stories that relate to the message being shared. So that relatability with the audience and the relatability and connection to the topic, because it's not just the content expertise of the person who's speaking, but oftentimes it's also the sense of passion and care for the topic as well. See, Milagros is talking about that authenticity, which is something that takes a while to build. It's funny, as children, we tend to be very authentic and very honest, and through a lot of feedback, insults, sometimes different painful experiences, we're taught to hide some more of that authenticity. So I find a lot of our confidence journey throughout our adulthood and throughout our lives is, how do I gain back that authenticity that makes the most sense for me? Excellent. A great story is something that's connecting. So I'm really glad to hear that there's a lot of things that have been drawing your attention and things that you've noticed that you can implement in your speaking as well. And as you see from the comments here, you might be inspired by what really drew someone else's attention and be able to really intentionally put that in your own speaking as well. Now, what I'll say is things that can really draw people's attention is you want to have a strong opening. And that might be your hook, or betterwise known as your hook in speaking. And let me tell you what I find to be one of the biggest mistakes when it comes to that opening. One of the biggest mistakes that I see folks doing when it comes to an opening where their number one goal is really engaging the audience and starting strong is starting with an introduction, especially a really long introduction to what they do. I've been to presentations that were 20 minutes long on a topic I was super interested about, but the person who was speaking introduced their background immediately and for about 5 minutes. So 25% of the content was me learning about this person, but not fully knowing what I was going to gain from that topic. So when you think about using a hook, a few examples that we talked about here are humor or some type of joke. We've talked about the idea of magnetizing attention through some type of why are you here and why you. So we want to start with that topic. And so a couple things can be a quote related to that topic, related to another expert. It can be a joke that lightens the mood and connects folks. And my favorite one is a question. My favorite one is to start with a question to help folks get more of that sense of, okay, how can I start participating? If you want to start with audience engagement, you need to start with it and you need to sprinkle it in throughout the presentation. If you're hoping, okay, well, folks will definitely be engaged by the Q&A. There's also been many times, and raise your hand in the comments, let me know in the comments if you've seen this before, where you or someone else have hosted a Q&A, but people were dropping off. You saw folks leaving the room, you saw folks taking notes or playing on their phone, or on Zoom, you saw people leaving the room. So if we wait to engage with folks till the Q&A, we've really lost an amazing ability, whether it's a 5-minute presentation, 30-minute presentation, couple-hour retreat or workshop, to make sure that folks are really paying attention throughout. They're taking notes. And more than that, when they're taking these notes, they're taking them with them after this presentation, and they're implementing what they've learned. So let me know, are there any quotes or any questions folks have asked that hooked you? Now, I realize I made a mistake in myself. I just asked you a really complicated question. One thing that's important if you're using a question to engage with folks is you want to make it as simple as possible. What you want to do is ask either a yes or no question or some type of question you can answer in one word. So for example, I see a lot of people start with, hey, starting with this presentation, how are you feeling today? Answer with one word. I see folks also using the yes or no answer. Tell me if you have your systems ready for your business. It might be a yes, it might be a no. And that also lets you as a speaker know, what does the audience look like? And how can I make sure I'm tailoring this presentation to that audience? And so I'll ask a simple question here. Let me know in the comments, yes or no, if you often use some type of hook when you're speaking. Oh, looks like a really great question here from Yadira. Have you ever taken a picture with a celebrity? Such an interesting hook. That allows folks to possibly even tell a story. That allows them to at least say the name of the person, and it's also yes or no. And so folks can go into more detail in the comments or even unmute as well. When you're thinking about folks' engagement too, you want to make it as clear as possible how they should be engaging. So for example, you let them know whether they should comment, whether they should unmute, if they should raise their hand, and you can even demonstrate the raising a hand. It's important to demonstrate that because you're allowing folks to know what the norms of your presentation are. A lot of people feel uncomfortable engaging, whether it's in person, online, or even in a webinar like this where I'm not able to see your faces, but I'm able to see in general some of your activity through the comments. So you want to make it as clear as possible for the person how they should engage, if they should be physically raising their hand, raising the Zoom hand, or any other type of engagement like commenting. So let me know in the comments, what's your favorite way to engage the audience when you're in person or on Zoom? Raising hands, comments, or anything else we haven't talked about so far. I see Alejandro's talking about some engagement here. I like when the speaker is able to take an individual question and then apply it to the larger group. A strong thing for audience engagement as well is repeating the question. Whether it's in Zoom or someone spoke on a microphone, or I would say the worst case scenario, you're in an in-person meeting, someone asks a question, but there's not a microphone. So if you start answering without repeating the question, folks get really lost because they're not sure what that question was. So when we're able to repeat that question and apply it to the larger group, it highlights that individual person's question provided strong value, and it allows people to feel a lot more confident and comfortable asking questions too, because they realize that they're not going to be punished and they're actually helping everyone. And really going to the ethos of no dumb question, because there really is truly no dumb question. Now, when you're speaking to an audience, whether it's on Zoom or in person, you want to make sure you're providing eye contact. It may feel uncomfortable, maybe something that you're not as used to, but it's a skill that you can build over time with a little bit of uncomfortable but concerted practice. So when it comes to the Zoom screen, you might want to do what I'm doing, which is looking directly at the camera. I look down just a little bit sometimes to look at the comments and make sure I'm sharing them along with y'all, because individual contributions can always support the group. But I also want to make sure that you feel like I'm speaking to you as an individual, that I'm an expert in a topic that you care about, and that I'm here as your confidant, and that I'm confident in what I'm saying. So looking at the camera and building that skill is really important. And like I've said at previous talks, having a sticky note with your favorite color and perhaps with a smiley face as a reminder above where the camera area is can be really helpful to making sure you're doing that. When you're engaging in eye contact in person, what you want to do is make sure that you're addressing different parts of the room with your eye contact. What I'm not saying is that you have to look at every single person. That's a bit intimidating, and that's quite a lot to add to your mind as you're remembering your presentation. So what you want to do is look at the crowd in what's known as like a W formation. You want to look at the bottom left, the top left, the middle bottom, the top right, and the bottom right. So it looks like an M, it looks like a W, and it allows you to address sections and swaths of the audience to make sure that you're really paying attention to some of the reactions. You notice if people have questions, and everyone feels spoken to. Because when you are speaking to many folks, you want to host your presentation like you're speaking to one person, and that each person is getting their individual time in some way with your contact. Again, it doesn't have to be directly each individual person. That's a lot for you, and honestly can be really uncomfortable for the person in the audience. But looking out at the different sections of the folks who are there can be really key. Glad to see Evangelina. Telling a story is really important. And if you decide you want to tell a story in your presentation, I highly recommend practicing it multiple times. A lot of the time when we tell a story, it can go very long. And perhaps we add too much context or too much information regarding a specific area. And we want to make sure part of our presentation and part of our respect for our audience is good time management. We want to make sure if we say, hey, this presentation is from noon to 12:30, that we're ending at 12:30, because we want to respect other people's time and the other commitments that they have as well. Excellent. Another thing regarding audience engagement is you can use tools. You can use tools both in person as well as on Zoom. And so perhaps you have different check-ins. You have check-in points set in your presentation for folks to ask questions rather than at the end of the presentation. You want to make sure you're clear that you'll take one or two questions, so that doesn't become the Q&A section itself, but that can be helpful to make sure you're addressing people's understanding. You can even do polls, which are really popular on Zoom, to see where people are regarding the topic that you're in. So for example, a poll for this presentation would be something like, have you told a story in a presentation you've given? How confident do you feel in your audience engagement, and ranking that? So these types of polls, again, are really helpful for you as a speaker to get a sense of where your audience is, so that you're tailoring your information to what's the most important for the folks that you're talking to. Now, your visuals. I talked about this at a recent presentation about the idea of hiding in public speaking. Sometimes we hide behind our hands. Sometimes we hide behind notes. And sometimes we can hide behind presentations or slide decks. Let me know if that's something that resonates with you, whether it's an experience you've had or an experience you've seen before. So let me know in the comments if that resonates with you. So when you're thinking about using visuals in your presentation, predominantly using slides, you really want to think about, how do these slides help you tell your story or talk about your topic without taking over your role as a speaker? That is really key because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to be tempted to read the slide only. You also don't want to give all the information in one go and have a very text heavy slide. You don't want any of your slides to be text heavy because folks can tend to read a lot faster than you might be able to recite your slide. And so they're now ahead of you and now have time to not pay attention. You want these slides to be little reminders for yourself, but also aids to really support your point, like a sidekick, rather than being the presentation itself. And one of the key ways that you can do that is by using images and using significantly fewer words. A successful slide with words is probably between 1 to 7 words. You don't want it to be too long. You don't want to have a bulleted list. You don't want it to go too far. Now, what I've seen too, and I use a lot in my presentations when I'm hosting, for example, hour-long or hour-and-a-half long workshops or keynotes, is having the bullets come on to the slide one by one. Would have been effective if I included that here. But what I love to do the most is I love to use a single picture to really help me highlight a story or a key point. So for example, it can be really lonely figuring out how to break in to the world of tech. It can feel really lonely hiding behind a screen, figuring out how am I going to build community? How am I going to build a network? And how do I feel confident putting myself out there on platforms such as LinkedIn? I've known that loneliness myself. I know it can be really hard focusing on the career search oneself without a community of folks looking out for you. One thing I find that's been really helpful is looking out for communities like this at Latina Professionals. And I moved from someone who was hiding behind slide decks and hiding behind laptops to someone who's engaging with folks one-on-one for mentorship. Alumni from my alma mater, Carnegie Mellon, who gave me time to really get a sense of what I wanted to do with my career. And slowly but surely, one by one, I was able to build a community and now be able to speak with many folks who are not even just in tech, but folks who are really trying to build that community. And even though it can be intimidating to think, oh my gosh, there's so many people here at this presentation, what I suggest you do is take it one by one. Now, what I'll tell you about these visuals here is that it helped me remember my points. I didn't feel like I had to memorize what I wanted to say, but I also knew that I was amplifying my message by using visuals that were relevant. A person who's lonely, a person who's lonely, a person who might be struggling quite a bit, trying to figure something out, with someone who's feeling confident and assured and has someone by their side and a supporter. Sometimes you can even start with a visual and think, what's a story that comes with that to help you? These visuals can also help you demonstrate transformation, going from this to going to this. And that is a fantastic hook itself, especially for other folks who are in the coaching, the education industry, or even folks giving client presentations, moving from one feeling overwhelmed, feeling stuck, feeling lonely, feeling stressed out, to feeling empowered, feeling connected, feeling control, and feeling confident. So let me know if this is something that was helpful for you. Is this something that you'll do as well, as use some visuals? I also want to highlight where I got these photos from, because this is a little known secret that many folks who are building out decks or even public speakers use quite a lot. And that website is called pexels.com. That is, actually, I think I'm able to write it in here for y'all. And what pexels.com is it allows you to use images through their site, different stock images, without needing to use copyright. You can use these free of charge, and you can either choose to share attribution or you don't have to share attribution. I recommend saving the attribution in your presentation, perhaps in the presenter notes, just so that you're able to attribute as you can. You can use photos from similar photographers, things like that, and keep a really clean and nice image as you present. Excellent. So I'm not sure how many of y'all are already familiar. Let me know if this is the first time you've heard of Pexels. Let me know that in the comments. Oh, we're moving through our images here. Visuals are a key way of nonverbal communication along with your gestures and your facial expressions to help make sure you're moving your message forward. I hope this is something that y'all use. This can easily be your one thing that you take from this presentation to really amplify your experience presenting, especially if you have a presentation coming up, any Q&As, because again, it's a fantastic way of helping you remember your speech and really amplifying that impact and magnetizing even more attention as folks are tuning into you on Zoom or following along with you in person. I hear, okay, a lot of people, this is the first time you've heard about it. Again, it's a tool I use consistently to build in emotion into my presentations. Now, I want to leave time open for Q&A, a little bit more time than I usually do. And the reason for this is we talked about so many different aspects and tactics that you can use in your presentations. We talked about hooks. We talked about quotes. We talked about ways you've seen other people draw attention. We talked about how you use the comment section, how you use physical gestures such as raising one's hand, and even visuals as well. I see here another person on LinkedIn is saying Pixabay is also a great resource for free photos. And so if you think of other resources that can help people engage with their audience, definitely feel free to include them here in the chat. And I want to leave some more time for this Q&A. Q&As, fantastic way to engage with your audience. As I said before, you want to make sure that you're engaging right from the start and throughout your presentation. If you wait till the Q&A, you often lose folks. And who knows, I perhaps maybe lost some folks as we went to the Q&A. I know we're getting to the end of our time here, or folks didn't have questions, and that's totally okay. But we want to make sure that we're building in that engagement and that sense of trust. People came in for a specific topic. They felt connected to that topic. They felt connected to you as a speaker. And now they recognize, hey, there's no dumb questions. The things that I ask can help other people. And so as we're here, I'll stick around for a couple minutes here for Q&A, or we can also share some resources. I see from Alejandra, we'll show here, I make my presentations in Canva and use the photos they provide on there. And that's a really great strategy there too, Alejandra, because on Canva, those photos, especially either the free version or the premium version of Canva, they've already been vetted that it's okay to use those photos. And especially if you're a business owner or entrepreneur, you want to make sure you're being careful with certain things regarding legal implications of using different resources. If you're using a stock photo, you're going on Getty Images and you're just taking those photos off the internet, it could come back to harm your business and harm yourself as a business owner regarding copyright infringement. Now we see here from Alejandra, we have a couple Alejandras in the audience. How do you overcome the nerves? Sometimes I get in my head and start to stutter or lose my train of thought. Fantastic question, Alejandra. Let's say you're already building up your deck, you already have your visuals, you already have some of your check-ins, but you're getting closer and closer to the presentation and you're feeling those nerves. First, I'll let you know, Alejandra, as I still feel nerves before hosting a presentation myself. And the idea isn't that you'll completely get rid of any fear or nerves, but it's more of a sense that you're able to manage them. One of the biggest strategies for managing those nerves is controlled breathing. One thing I've taught beforehand is box breathing. So inhaling for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, and then holding it again another 4 seconds. A few rounds of that. Another thing I find that overcomes the nerves that we talked about in this presentation is having a strong opener. You want to make sure you're starting in a strong way so folks know that not only are they interested in the topic, but they're interested in you as a speaker as well. And so with that, my recommendation is instead of going over the presentation itself 20 times, is maybe you go over and rehearse the presentation 2 or 3 times, maybe rehearsing certain sections that you feel a little bit more sticky with multiple times, but rehearsing the opening, maybe the opening 5 minutes multiple times can be really helpful because we often feel the most nervous at the start and then our nervous system can't stay this high. It can't stay this highly dysregulated. It slowly but surely goes down and kind of plateaus. And so if you're building more and more confidence of that opener, it makes it a lot easier to manage those nerves as you go along. So I hope that's helpful, Alejandra. I also see another Alejandra asking a question, which is, what are your thoughts when people use non-relevant images to the material or topic, but are brand images of the person presenting? I've seen folks' presentations use images from a brand photo shoot. Fantastic question. I think this is a great topic to talk about, especially for entrepreneurs and other founders. So first, it's really important when you're getting your brand photos done to think about the different elements of presentations you have or presentations you'll host in the future, so that you perhaps have a brand photo of looking super frustrated, or a brand photo of you writing something down, or a brand photo of you drinking coffee. That can definitely be really helpful. But what I find is that if it's only that one person, it can get a little bit stagnant, and it's also not as related to the presentation, which can confuse the audience. So my suggestion would be doing a mix of the brand photos as well as photos from Pexels, and maybe focusing a little bit more on the aesthetic or lighting of the photo, because it's also important when talking to communities to make sure that there are folks representing them on the screen. Folks of different ethnic or racial backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds in general, different abilities, different groups of folks, for example, different types of workplaces. And so that can often be helpful to make sure that the presentation is something that feels open and welcoming to everyone. So I hope that's really helpful. LinkedIn user is kind of closing the topic here. So the more you know your topic, the more confident you feel presenting it. And that is completely true. Sometimes there is a little bit of a mindset shift when it comes to, I'm not the foremost expert in the room, but you get to be an expert in some way. You're still teaching folks things that they need to know. And like today, I'm glad I asked if people here used Pexels, because if I hadn't mentioned it, there would be 7, 8, or even more of y'all who didn't know that resource. So the more confident you feel presenting or confident you feel about the topic, that can be helpful, but always know there's always someone in the audience at some point who doesn't know something from the presentation, and that really helps them out quite a bit. Thank you all for attending this presentation. The next one will be on building resilience, so bouncing back from speaking setbacks. And I've had a number of them here on Latina Professionals. So whether it's technical issues, stuttering, or other issues, I highly recommend you attend this session and share with your network so that they can learn as well, as we're rounding out the end of July here. If you're interested in working with me, either hiring me to speak at an event, or you're interested in one-on-one coaching because you're looking for that direct support as you build your confidence in public speaking, let me know. Let's speak soon. And definitely consider joining the Latina Professionals community. This is a space where you are able to learn from so many experts who are catering to different topics that the Latina community is really interested in learning. It's a great way to boost your professional development, whether you're a student, entry level, or an executive level leader. And if you've enjoyed the things that I've talked about, definitely join my newsletter on www.speakyall.com or message me at sammy@speakyall.com, because I'd be happy to connect after this presentation. I hope you have a great day, y'all, and really start speaking up so much more now that you have at least a couple more tactics that can help you. Have a great one.